You know that feeling when you check your bank account at the end of the month, and you're not broke exactly, but you're also not okay? Like, you made decent money this month. You paid your bills. You maybe even went out to dinner a couple times. And yet somehow you're looking at that balance thinking, where did all of it go? And the wild part is, you're not being reckless. You're not buying Ferraris or flying first class or doing anything that would make a financial advisor wince. You're just living a normal life, a reasonable life, a life that by basically every external measure looks like success. You've got a job, a car, maybe a mortgage, maybe a kid or two, a Netflix subscription, a gym membership you use enough to not feel guilty about. You're doing everything right, and yet the wealth, the real, actual, compounding kind of wealth, it just never seems to arrive. My name is Josh, and I spend probably an unhealthy amount of time thinking about money, not just the numbers of it, but the psychology of it. Why some people seem to build wealth almost quietly, almost effortlessly, while other people grind just as hard and stay financially stuck for decades. And I'll be honest with you, I used to be deeply confused by this. Because the advice you hear is so simple, right? Budget, save, invest. Don't spend more than you earn. It almost sounds insulting in how obvious it is. And yet millions of people who know all of that advice are still caught in this exhausting cycle where they earn more, spend more, stress more, and somehow end up in the same place. What I want to talk to you about today isn't another budgeting hack or a list of 5 things to stop buying at Starbucks. What I want to talk about is something deeper, the actual structure of the middle-class money trap. Because it is a trap, a real one. And the scary thing is that it's specifically designed to look like progress while keeping you exactly where you are. By the end of this, I think you're going to see your financial life a little differently, and I genuinely believe that shift alone, just seeing it differently, is where everything starts to change. Let's start at the beginning. And the beginning, honestly, is a word that nobody really interrogates. Deserve. Here's how it usually goes. You work hard, you get a raise, and somewhere, almost automatically, a voice in your head goes, okay, now I can treat myself a little. I've earned this. And that's not an irrational thought. That's a deeply human thought. You put in the work, you got the reward, and now you want to feel the reward. Makes total sense. But here's what actually happens. That raise, let's say it's $500 a month after tax, almost instantly gets absorbed. A slightly nicer apartment, a better car payment, dinners out instead of cooking, subscriptions that didn't exist 2 years ago. And none of these things are bad. That's what's so insidious about this. Every single upgrade is individually justifiable. Of course, you deserve a nicer car now that you're making more money. Of course, you should live somewhere you actually like. Of course, a gym membership is an investment in your health. But collectively, what just happened is that your lifestyle expanded to perfectly consume your new income. And you feel no wealthier than you did before the raise. Economists have a name for this. They call it lifestyle inflation. I call it the deserve trap, because it's driven not by logic, but by this emotional sense of entitlement that our culture very actively encourages. Work hard, earn money, spend money on nicer things. That is literally the script. That is what every advertisement, every social media post, every cultural signal is telling you success looks like. The people who escape this trap, and I've noticed this across a lot of research and a lot of conversations, they don't deny themselves everything. That's not it. They just have a slightly different relationship with that word, deserve. They ask a quieter question. Does this spending make me more free or less? Not more comfortable, not more impressive, more free. A nicer car that locks you into a 5-year payment plan is not freedom. A slightly older car that's paid off, while you invest the difference, That's quietly, invisibly building freedom. And the thing about invisible freedom is that it doesn't feel as good in the moment. That's exactly why most people never choose it. Okay, so here's something I find genuinely fascinating and also a little bit maddening about personal finance advice. Almost all of it is focused on spending. Cut this, cancel that, stop buying coffee. As if the entire problem is that you're spending too much and the solution is just austerity. And look, spending matters, obviously. But there's this other side of the equation that gets almost criminally ignored when we talk to middle-class people specifically: the income ceiling. Here's what I mean. Most middle-class income comes from one source: a job, a salary. And a salary is structurally a very limited thing. There are only so many hours in a day. There are raises, sure, but they tend to be modest and incremental. There's a cap, maybe not a hard cap, but a soft one, on how much you can realistically earn by trading time for money in a single career. Meanwhile, wealthy people, and I don't mean billionaires, I just mean people who are genuinely building wealth, they almost always have income coming from more than one direction: a job and investments that pay dividends, a business on the side, real estate rental income, something that earns while they sleep, even modestly. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Easy for you to say. I don't have time to start a business, I'm already exhausted. And that's fair. That's a real constraint. I'm not going to pretend that building a second income stream is simple or fast, because it's not. But here's the thing. You don't need a second income stream that matches your salary. You just need one that grows, something small that compounds over time. Even $200 a month invested consistently in index funds at an average historical return becomes something significant over a decade. Not because of the $200 itself, but because of what it represents: your money working for you instead of just sitting there. The middle-class trap is, in part, a trap of having only one financial gear. All the pressure is on your salary. And when that salary gets disrupted, by illness, by layoff, by industry change, the whole thing collapses. The escape isn't about making millions overnight. It's about quietly, stubbornly building a second gear, something else that works while you work. I want to talk about houses for a second, because this is where I'm going to say something that might genuinely irritate some of you, and I want to say it carefully. We were basically all raised to believe that buying a house is the cornerstone of financial success. It's the thing you do when you've made it. It builds equity. It's an investment. It's the responsible adult move. And look, there's real truth in parts of that. Home ownership has genuinely built wealth for a lot of people over a lot of decades. But here's where it gets complicated. A house you live in is not purely an asset in the way your parents might have described it. It costs money every single month: mortgage, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs. It doesn't produce income. It doesn't pay you. It's a place you live, and its value may or may not go up over time depending on factors almost entirely outside your control. Robert Kiyosaki, love him or find him insufferable, whatever, made this point famously in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. By that definition, your primary residence is, for most people, mostly a liability. And the middle class is often heavily concentrated in this one thing, their home, while having almost nothing in actual income-producing assets. Now, I'm not saying don't buy a house. I'm not saying rent forever. I'm saying be honest with yourself about what it is. It is shelter, and it might appreciate, and that's great. But it is not a substitute for an investment portfolio. It is not a retirement plan. And the psychological comfort of home ownership, the feeling that you're building something, can actually disguise the fact that you're not building the kind of wealth that gives you real options. The shift that matters here is learning to think in terms of cash flow. What do you own that pays you? stocks that pay dividends, a rental property, a business, bonds, anything. The people stuck in the middle-class trap often have a high net worth on paper, tied up in a house, but very little that actually generates income month to month. They're rich in a spreadsheet and cash poor in real life. All right, this one is a little uncomfortable, but I think it might actually be the most important section in this whole video, so stick with me. A huge underappreciated driver of middle-class financial stagnation is social pressure. And I don't mean obvious peer pressure. I mean the subtle, ambient, almost invisible pressure of trying to appear at a certain level. The holiday gifts that are a little more expensive than you can actually afford. The vacation you took because everyone in your friend group was taking vacations and you couldn't stand being the one who didn't. The car upgrade because your old car was starting to feel embarrassing at school pickup. The kitchen renovation because it was just time, even though the old kitchen was perfectly functional. None of these decisions feel like peer pressure in the moment. They feel like personal choices. But they're being made in a social context, and that context is doing a lot of heavy lifting on your behalf, steering you towards spending. Here's something that struck me when I started really looking at this. Genuinely wealthy people, not people who look wealthy, but people who actually are, they are often shockingly indifferent to appearances. The research on this is kind of wild. A disproportionate number of millionaires drive used cars, live in modest neighborhoods, and don't particularly care if people know they have money, because they're not building wealth for the performance of it. They're building it for the freedom of it. And freedom doesn't need an audience. The middle-class money trap, though, almost requires an audience, because so much of the spending that drives it is fundamentally social. It's spending to signal, to belong, to avoid the discomfort of seeming like you're falling behind. Escaping it doesn't mean becoming a hermit or refusing to ever do anything nice. It means getting honest, brutally, privately honest, about which of your financial decisions are genuinely about your own joy and values, and which ones are about managing other people's perceptions of you. Because that second category, it is costing you a fortune. Let me tell you about a conversation I had once with someone who was incredibly smart, genuinely, and had been saying for about 7 years that he was going to start seriously investing once things settled down, once the car was paid off, once the kids were older, once the busy season at work passed, once. And he wasn't lazy, he wasn't irresponsible. He was just waiting for a moment of financial clarity that, if I'm honest, was never going to naturally arrive. Because life doesn't create that moment for you. The expenses don't stop stacking up. There's always a next thing eating the margin you thought you'd have. Here's the math of this, and I promise I'll make it quick. If you invest $300 a month starting at age 25, and you earn an average 8% annual return, you'll have somewhere around $1 million by age 65. If you wait until 35 to start that same $300 a month, you end up with less than half that. You waited 10 years, and it cost you more than $500,000, not because you spent more, because you waited. Compound interest is extraordinary, but it is also deeply, almost insultingly indifferent to your excuses. It doesn't care that you were busy. It doesn't care that the timing wasn't right. It rewards early, consistent action, even small action, and it punishes delay with mathematical cruelty. The practical takeaway here is almost offensively simple. Start before you're ready. Invest something, anything, this month. Not next month when you've figured out the perfect allocation. Not when the market calms down. Now. Because the cost of waiting isn't abstract, it's concrete, it's measurable, and it is almost certainly larger than you think. I want to end the body of this video with something that I think gets glossed over in most financial content, which is, what does escaping the middle-class trap actually look like in practice? Because I think a lot of people picture it as some dramatic leap, some moment where everything changes and suddenly you're free. And that framing is actually dangerous because it makes the real path feel invisible. The real escape is boring. I mean that sincerely. It looks like not upgrading your car when your lease is up. It looks like redirecting that $400 a month into an index fund instead. It looks like saying no to a vacation you couldn't quite afford and not making a big deal of it. It looks like slowly, methodically building a financial cushion that gives you options. Options to take a risk on a business idea, options to leave a job that's making you miserable, options to not panic when something unexpected happens. It accumulates quietly. There's no confetti moment. There's just one day, years from now, when you realize you have choices that other people around you don't. You could take 6 months off if you needed to. You could absorb a financial shock without going into debt. You could retire earlier than the script says you should. That's what financial freedom feels like. Not a yacht, just options. And here's the thing that I keep coming back to. The people who build it aren't smarter than you. They're not luckier necessarily. They just started thinking differently. They stopped measuring wealth by what they spend and started measuring it by what they own and what their money earns. That's it. That reframe, as simple as it sounds, is the whole game. So let's bring this together. The middle-class money trap isn't a conspiracy. Nobody sat in a boardroom and designed it to keep you stuck. It's just a set of cultural patterns, psychological tendencies, and structural realities that collectively pull your money away from you faster than you can accumulate it. The deserve trap, the lifestyle inflation, the single income stream, the confusion of a house with a financial plan, the social spending, the waiting. None of these things alone would sink you. Together they create a current, a strong, invisible current that keeps you swimming in place no matter how hard you kick. And the way out isn't one big, dramatic move. It's a series of small, quiet, slightly boring decisions that compound over time. It's deciding that freedom matters more than appearances. It's starting to invest before you feel ready. It's building a second income stream before you need one. It's getting honest about the spending that's about joy versus the spending that's about performance. I know some of this is uncomfortable, genuinely, because it means looking at habits and patterns and social pressures that we don't usually examine directly. But that discomfort is where the change lives. You don't have to be rich to start. You don't have to have it figured out. You just have to take the next small step, and then the one after that. Because wealth isn't built in moments of inspiration. It's built in the ordinary Tuesday decisions that nobody sees and nobody applauds. But one day, and this is the part I want you to hold on to, one day you'll look up and realize the current isn't pulling at you anymore. You're not swimming in place. You're actually moving. And that feeling, it's quiet. It's not flashy. But it is worth every single boring, patient, intentional decision that got you there. If you found this video valuable, make sure to subscribe to this channel, comment your thoughts. I read every single one. Like this video. And also, I made a community dedicated to digging deeper into these type of problems. It's called Investing Society. If you are interested, the link is in the description. Now, thanks for watching and see you in the next video.